After 2 million Koreans, plus the occasional foreigner, had died in battle, enough was enough. They pointed at a line in the ground, the same line that had been there since before the war, and decided that, until further notice, they would keep to their own sides. The communist in the north invented self-reliance as a political ideology, while his counterpart in the south, sensibly enough, did not label the dictatorship he created with any honest name. Years passed. Leaders on both sides came and went, as leaders tend to do. The dictatorship in the south gradually lost its hold, while the self-reliance in the north prospered so extensively that people began to starve. It's easy for someone who trusts only themselves to become suspicious of others. When the South allowed American tactical nuclear weapons to be placed on their side of the border, those in the North took it all wrong, at least from an arms reduction perspective. The Swedish manufacturer Volvo, outside Gothenburg, was full of celebration after the delivery of 1,000 shiny new cars to Pyongyang. This celebration later turned out to be premature, for the North Koreans had rearranged their priorities. They chose to build test sites for nuclear weapons instead of paying what they owed. To this day, Volvo hasn't received a single North Korean won in return. Despite one thing and the next, there were some cross-border talks. Surely a solution could be reached. Yes, perhaps. For a while, in the early childhood of the current century, things were looking very bright indeed. But back to the part about how leaders come and go. In 2017, tensions were higher than ever between the North on the one hand and most of the rest of the world on the other. The latest in the series of leaders who had come, but not yet gone, were named Kim Jong-un and Donald J. Trump. And caught in the middle was the Swedish UN envoy, Margot Wallström. She had no illusions that her task would be an easy one. The envoy and her plane landed at Sunan International Airport 10 minutes ahead of the scheduled time. The Supreme Leader was informed, and as planned, he immediately adjourned the ongoing meeting with Messrs. Carlsson and Jonsson. Wallström was shown to a limousine and informed that the Supreme Leader awaited. Her baggage would be transported to the pre-booked hotel or the Swedish embassy, depending on which the envoy preferred. The journey took her south towards central Pyongyang. After 40 minutes, the limousine passed the Supreme Leader's palace and continued towards downtown. "Excuse me, but weren't we going to see the Supreme Leader?" said Minister for Foreign Affairs Wallström. "That is correct," the driver responded, without expanding further. 10 minutes later, in any case, the journey was over. The Minister for Foreign Affairs was invited out of the limousine and led into an 8-story building. "Where are we?" she asked her smiling female escort in bewilderment. "This is the main office of the news bureau KCNA. The Supreme Leader awaits." A news bureau? Margot Wallström felt ill at ease. After all, this trip was supposed to take place under the greatest discretion so that it didn't spur even greater polarization between the parties. On the other hand, this was probably a country where no news bureau would dare to report on her presence without first obtaining the blessing of the Supreme Leader. Perhaps her worry was unfounded. Their journey continued 3 stories up, down a long hallway, to the left, right, and left again. "Here we are," said the escort. "Please, step in." If Margot Wallström had been expecting crystal chandeliers and velvet chairs, she was disappointed. This was more like... well, what was this? The anteroom of a theatre stage? A TV studio? There were cables running along the sides, 2 discarded spotlights in one corner, and... there he was. "Welcome, Madam Minister for Foreign Affairs," the Supreme Leader said kindly. "Was the trip okay?" "Yes, thank you. Very nice to meet you. But I have to ask, where are we, and what are we doing here?" "Why, we're going to save the world together," said Kim Jong-un. "But right now, you must meet a man to whom I myself have hardly even had time to say hello." Allan Carlsson was shoved out from behind a curtain and walked over to greet Minister for Foreign Affairs Wallström. "This is the world's perhaps preeminent expert in nuclear weapons, Mr. Carlsson, from Switzerland. He has come to the Democratic People's Republic out of love for our common cause." Minister for Foreign Affairs Margot Wallström found herself in a situation out of her control. But she took the old Swiss man's hand on Kim Jong-un's urging.